Order. City Commission meeting of Tuesday, February 19th, 2019. Let the record show we're missing one commissioner, Mr. Steiner. First order is the order of business. Mr. Gaw, are there any changes to the order of business?
Yes, thank you, Mr. President. Commissioners, there is one change to the agenda under public safety. Police Department was going to provide their annual report. We are going to table that until the next meeting. So Chief Sivak will have plenty of time to update you on the fire department.
All right, looking forward to it. Any other changes?
No, sir, that's it.
All right. Any questions for Mr. Gaw on the amended order of business? Not, I'd look for a motion on the order of business.
Move to approve, Mr. President.
I have a motion to approve the amended order of business
Second.
with a second. Any further discussion or questions on the order of business? Hearing none, all in favor of the amended order of business, state aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Order of business is approved as amended. Next item up is consent agenda. Are there any items on the consent agenda that commissioners wish to discuss? Hearing nothing, I'd look for a motion on the consent agenda.
Move to approve, Mr. President.
We have a motion to approve the consent agenda
Second.
with a second. Any further discussion on consent agenda? Hearing none, we'll vote. Mrs. Trustum?
Aye.
Mr. Frederick?
Aye.
Ms. Walla?
Aye.
Chair votes aye. Motion carries. We do have a couple of items this evening on the timetable. We'll proceed into our non-timetable, and that is administration and finance. And first item up is our annual financial report. Accountant Maury.
Thank you, President Decker. Starting with our treasurer's report as of the year end 2018, no major changes again to this since last time that we presented. We're still right around that 50 million range, and we actually, for our final reconciliation of the year, ended at just over 54 million. So we've been pretty consistently in that $50 million range in 2018. As far as our trust accounts, again, we haven't had any major withdrawals or anything like that in 2018, so everything's been pretty consistent throughout the whole year. Future funds just up over 7 million now to end the year, and our total investments are at 35.8 million. And then as far as our pensions, we did contribute exactly what we budgeted in 2018, so you won't see any major changes there either. Going on to our collections from the state treasurer's office, starting out the 1%, and I should remind the public again too, as we get into this, that these slides show the cash as we collect them. We collect the money on a 2-month lag, so dollars that you see we collected in December were actually earned in October. In the 1% sales tax, we had a 7.5% increase in our collections in 2018 over 2017. We're actually about 400,000 higher in collections to end 2018. In December by itself, as you can see there, it was about 100,000 higher, so it was about a 20% increase just in December from 2018, back from 2017. And we show these separately also as a reminder to the public that even though we collect all our sales tax as one lump sum, we have a 1% sales tax fund and then a 0.5% sales tax fund, basically to separate the money on our end after we receive it. So this trend will be exactly the same as the previous slide you just saw. It'll be exactly half of all the previous collections.
Mr. Maury, question on now that the state is collecting internet tax, Are they only collecting their 5%? They're not collecting the 1.5 for municipalities, or I guess that might be a question for Mrs. Carlson.
President Decker, I am not positive on that. I would have to look that up.
Okay. Just curious how that impacted everybody.
Moving on to hospitality tax, we're also about $85,000 higher in our hospitality tax collections in 2018 than we were in 2017, about 9% higher. We forecasted to be around a little over 850,000, and we ended up in about $1 million range. We did forecast very conservatively, so we did record more revenue than what we initially forecasted. For our occupancy tax, this shows our collections, and what we do when we receive these dollars is we take out a half of 1% administration fee, and the rest of the dollars are paid directly to the Convention and Visitors Bureau. So we'll see a very small amount of these dollars, and the rest will be paid out directly to the CVB. We did see about a 2.5% increase in 2018 over what we collected in 2017. We ended up being about $9,000 higher to end 2018. For oil impact revenue, you can see it's there's somewhat of a disparity between the 2 years. 2017 is the blue line. And at the end of 2017, we started taking out dollars that went to the $2.5 million that the legislature gave to Dickinson State University. So that's why you see that dive at the end of 2017, starting in 2018. And then in about August of 2018, we started coming back up to where our collections should be. We did budget $10.5 million in our oil impact forecast. We ended up collecting $13.5 million at the end of 2018. This slide is just a snapshot of the debt summary that you received in your packets as well. It's just to show that at the end of 2018, we finished with $87.2 million in debt from bonds and leases. We're estimating if everything comes in when it's supposed to and we make our payments, if there's no major changes with that, we'll finish the year at about $81.4 million for total bond and lease debt at the end of 2019. So this slide was a request to be included, and this is a snapshot from a slide that was presented probably over a year ago for the Building Construction Fund. And it's just to show you basically what we've paid out of the fund for a few of the projects that were initially approved. As you can see, we've had a few that are paid in full already. We do have those bottom two projects, the parking lot signage and the quality of life initiatives, that we have not spent any dollars yet to this point. And our cash balance in the Building Construction Fund at the end of 2018 was $275,000. And then our final slide here is another snapshot of an item that you receive in your packet. It's our accounts receivable and accounts payable age report, just to give you an idea of where we're at with both our collections and our payables. And we also included in your packet a breakdown of any item that's over 90 days, so you can see what those items are. So if you have any questions on those, please let us know. Other than that, if there are any questions, I'll do my best to answer them now, and city staff recommends approval.
Okay, any questions for Mr. Maury? Hearing none, I'd look for a motion on the annual financial report.
I move to approve, Mr. President.
A motion to approve
Second.
with a second. Any further discussion or questions for Mr. Maury? Hearing none, we'll vote. Mr. Frederick?
Aye.
Ms. Trustum?
Aye.
Ms. Wall?
Aye.
Chair votes aye. Motion carries on the annual financial report. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
All right, next item up, Mr. Gah, we have League of Cities event.
Yes, Mr. President, Commissioners, a couple of events coming up with the League of Cities. The first one is on Friday, March 1st. It's a one-day event. Celebrate Cities Day is what they call it, somewhat of a legislative relationship day. They have a few of these throughout the session, similar to some we've participated in. If you're interested in attending that, just let Rita or I know. We'll get the registrations. I'm going to tentatively planning to attend that. The second one's a two-day conference, March 26th and 27th. They're calling it March Madness versus Sense and Sensibility Conference, so I believe just somewhat of a spring conference, several different topics. We've provided some information for you for that as well. Again, if you're interested in attending either one of those, just let Rita or I know, and we'll get the registrations done.
Okay, any questions for Mr. Gah on the League of City events? All right, thank you. Next item up, we have Mr. Hirschfeld, and we have our assessor's assessment analysis, I guess it is.
Good evening, Mr. President, Commissioners. Just a quick update. We did get the Vanguard report back. Not a lot of changes going on with it overall. I guess total dollars we're going to see some decrease to commercial value. Be an increase, a little bit of an increase to metal buildings with the oil ticking back up. We're seeing seeing the market looking at purchasing those buildings back again, seeing some strength in that. Apartments will probably be down about 5% is what the study showed. But with a couple sales that came across my desk today, looks like we're coming in for a crash landing on those as they're rebounding back. These three apartments sold at 92% ratio, so 8%. They paid 8% more than the assessed value. And then there'll be decreases to hotels, motel properties, and to mobile home parks. So there'll be some pretty significant decreases to those. Everything else will probably remain relatively the same. On the residential side, we're at 96%, so our sales ratio analysis is just right there where we want it. The metrics look good on just about every class of property. We are maybe just a tick high on the housing in the entry-level neighborhoods where the older houses are at. They're running about 102%, so just about 5% higher than everything else. So we'll probably give a little bit of decrease to those neighborhoods. That's about all I have for you right now. I know we gave the Vanguard report to you for preview, so if you have any questions, I'm open to those, but I don't have a whole lot else to bring forth tonight myself.
Any questions for Mr. Hirschfeld? Well, thank you. Okay, next item up is we have the fire department, their annual report.
Thank you, President Decker and Commissioners. Tonight, I'd like to present the annual report of activities of the Dickinson Fire Department in 2018. This presentation is a summary overview of the full report that has been provided to each of you. Okay. There we go. City of Dickinson Fire Department's been serving the community since July of 1891. In 2018, we operated out of 2 fire stations with a total number of 43 members, 16 of those full-time, 27 volunteers. We are one of 3 state fire departments with an insurance service rating of 3, ISO classification rating of 3. We're very proud of that. We achieved that actually in 2017. Contained in your full report, you will find specific information on both stations and the equipment available. Based on 2017 census information, we serve a population within the 14 square miles encompassing the city of Dickinson of about 22,000 people. We serve the community with three divisions: the administration division, which oversees the day-to-day activities of the fire department, which includes our operations division, which is managed by Assistant Chief Deb Barrows, assisted by Fire Engineer Hillary Hartman. And under operations, you will find fire suppression, hazardous materials incident response, medical assist calls, technical rescue, department training, department health and wellness. And the Fire Prevention Bureau, managed by Fire Marshal Mark Selly, assisted by Fire Inspector Todd O'Donnell. You'll find fire and life safety inspections, plan reviews, code enforcement, and public education. We're also very pleased, in addition to that, to have 2 chaplains serving the department and the community, and 6 of our former members or retired members that serve still with us as reserves. This is the first report that we've presented where we've got a letter of information on the chaplaincy program from one of our chaplains. There's just a brief synopsis of his letter there, and again, the full letter included in your report. It's been a tremendous benefit to our department and to the community. Health and wellness is a very important part of the operations division, and nationwide what we are finding in the last several years especially, cancer and heart disease are the leading causes of death in firefighters. Cancer, in fact, has become the leading cause of death for firefighters nationwide. Heart disease is the leading cause of line of duty deaths in the fire service. Because of this, changes have been implemented in the Dickinson Fire Department's operating procedures, training, and general station and apparatus maintenance to help ensure the health, wellness, and safety of our members. This includes education, promotion of physical fitness, healthy practices, early detection. One of the things that was approved for the 2019 budget was a remodel of the downtown fire station. Some of the concerns that we're trying to address in health and wellness, we hopefully will be able to address with that remodel. Our operations division in 2018 had 681 incidents. Considering approximately 10 years ago, we were a department that averaged a little over 200 incidents a year. Things have changed quite dramatically for the city of Dickinson and for the Dickinson Fire Department. The majority of those incidents reported were in the third quarter with 192. The fire dollar loss in 2018 was $1,972,990, and thanks to a new program we have, we can also estimate fire dollars saved of $628,384. The graph shows the reported incident types that we respond to, from fire, good intent, false alarm, hazardous conditions, for your more in-depth look later.
Chief Seebach, on the false alarms, is there any way we're looking into alleviating some of those calls?
Well, yes, actually. There's if it's truly a false alarm, that's because of equipment malfunction, or not malfunction, equipment repair that needs to take place, or a procedure that needs to change. We inform the occupant of that. If upon a second response to that location that hasn't changed, there is in fact a fee that's assessed to them.
I was just going to ask
the way,
that.
yeah, the way the information is captured, however, sometimes false alarms and false calls also contains some legitimate alarm activations that really aren't a malfunction, but that's how they're captured. They didn't result in an actual fire or an actual event progressing, but they're captured under false alarms and false calls. So somewhat of a little deceiving number there, but yes, we do, the true false alarm and false call we address and try to correct that problem. The operations division, again, we thought this graph, and I'm not sure, I don't think this graph is reflected in the information we shared with you, but we thought it was kind of interesting just to see the time of day when most of our incidents happen. I was wrong in what I would have guessed. And 4 p.m. to 7 p.m., 186 of our calls happened in that time frame. The next largest number is 12 p.m. to 3 p.m. So there again, I would have guessed later at night or earlier in the morning, quite frankly. But we thought it was an interesting graph, and we wanted to share that with you. Also under operations is training. Now, in order to maintain our ISO classification of 3, department members must obtain a certain amount of training in some very specific areas every year. These are detailed again in your report, along with the trainings available per location. We have Station 1 has some very specific things available to it, as does Station 2, and our training site, which we're very proud of, and which is being recognized, as you've heard me say before, as a regional training site. This, in 2018, we had 5 firefighters that achieved Firefighter 1 certification. That is mandatory. Within 2 years of being on our department, a volunteer firefighter must have Firefighter 1 certification. Firefighter 2 certification, we had 1. Those that achieved Firefighter 1, I'm going to, Ethan Guzman, Jeliza Ochiltree, Ian McGovern, Josh Mackey, and Anthony Reinhardt. Firefighter 2 certification, Jared Rohde. Fire Instructor 1 certification, we had 2, Sean Schumacher, Kyle McIntosh. Very proud of these achievements over and above everything else we ask these individuals to do. The Fire Prevention Bureau conducted 1,718 inspections in 2018 using the 2015 International Fire Code as adopted by the City of Dickinson. Inspection priorities are given to assembly occupancies, educational, high hazard, hotel, motel, apartments, and healthcare occupancies. You might be sitting there wondering, well, good Lord, that's everything. What does that leave out? That leaves out a whole lot of business occupancies that we don't see pose the threat, the same level of concern, I should say, as these where there's a lot of either a lot of citizens that may be in an overnight situation or large gatherings, things like that. What we say when these are inspection priorities, these are once a year minimum for sure inspections. We have to get into those. Because we're still in a situation where we went from prior to the boom inspecting everything in city limits at least once a year to being in a situation we were 2 years behind on some of our inspections. So what we did was prioritize to try and regain some of that ground and make sure we cover our target hazards in a timely fashion. Fire Prevention Bureau also takes care of public education. Public education events will include safety lectures, extinguisher demos, fire drills, community events, department tours. We take part in a lot of activities. Lectures, safety lectures are performed upon request for area organizations, child care providers, and businesses. In 2018, 140 public education events were conducted by our staff. And National Fire Prevention Week in 18 was October 7 to 13. Our activities usually extend beyond that. We had contact with over 2,000 students and children through the course of 104 visits. And every year, we do what we can to bring in grants and solicit donations to help our operation. And in 2018, we had some very strong cooperation from the community and from our partners in the community, and we always do, quite honestly, not just in 18. With ConocoPhillips, we received a grant for $12,000 that helped us purchase a fire extinguisher training prop that will be in use at our training site. Marathon, $10,000 for another training prop. Citizen donation of $100 for the Fire Prevention Bureau. The Badlands Board of Realtors, $6,250, helped us purchase new CPR mannequins required for testing, and also helped us purchase a new Sparky costume. And no, I don't wear that. Rough Rider, Truist. Truist is a kind of a clearinghouse of individual donations. $420 from them. Rough Rider Electric, unsolicited donation of $200. Again, a couple more from the Truist. Just great partnership with our community and support of our department. And with that, that concludes my summary of our annual report. Are there any questions?
Thank you, Chief Seevock. Any questions for Chief Seevock on his annual report?
Thanks, Chief.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. All right, we have a few minutes before our timetable, and we'll move into Public Works. And the first item, we have a garage truck bid. Public Works Director Zuroff.
Thank you, President Decker. You caught me off guard. I thought there was another one before me. First of all, we have garbage truck bids. The City of Dickinson Solid Waste Recycling Department received 4 bids for 2 2019 side load refuse collection trucks. We had the 4 bids, and the lowest bid was from Northland Truck Sales for a total cost price of $491,914. Although this wasn't the low bid, because the lowest bid had a conventional cab chassis, which we've always spec'd the cab over hydraulic tilt. So, and we required the cab over hydraulic tilt cab. So the next lowest bid that had the correct cab was the Northland Truck Sales. And this is a budget capital purchase item. And then we budgeted $540,000 for over a 5-year period lease. City, if you have any questions, please ask. City staff recommends approval of the 2 side load trucks from Northland Truck Sales for $491,914.
Okay. And with the additional cost, the $12,000 per truck, we're still under budget.
Correct.
Correct. Right. Any questions for Mr. Zuroff on the garbage truck bids? Hearing no questions, I'd look for a motion.
Mr. President, I move we approve the second bid for 400, I just closed out here, 1 second. For $491,914 to Northland Truck Sales.
All right, we have a motion to approve the purchase from Northland Truck
Second.
with a second. Any further discussion or questions? Hearing none, we'll vote. Mr. Frederick?
Aye.
Ms. Walla?
Aye.
Mrs. Trustum?
Aye.
Chair votes aye. Motion carries.
Thank you, President Decker. Commission, the next bids that we received were the bids for 2 motor graders. We received 2 bids, one from Caterpillar for Butler Machinery and one from RDO Equipment. RDO Equipment bid was the lowest for a total cost of $389,100. And this is a 2019 model 772 GP motor grader. That includes trade. This is under the 2019 budgeted amount, and staff recommends approval.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Zuroff. We're trading 2 in for these 2?
Correct.
Any other questions for Mr. Zuroff on the motor graders? Hearing no questions, I'd look for a motion on the purchase of the motor graders.
Mr. President, I would move to approve the bid from RDO Equipment Company for $389,000. Yeah.
Okay, we have a motion to approve the bid from RDO Equipment.
Second.
With a second. Any further questions or comments? Hearing none, we'll vote. Mrs. Trustum?
Aye.
Mr. Frederick?
Aye.
Ms. Walla?
Aye.
Chair votes aye. Motion carries.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Zuroff. We'll move into our timetable, and the first item at 5 o'clock is public hearing on our HR code amendment, and that will be handled by City Attorney Murtha.
Thank you, Mr. President. Members of the commission, before you, and I'm just looking at the number here, for consideration is an ordinance to amend our Human Resources Code, which is found in Chapter 29. I? That would be proposed ordinance number, looking for it on the agenda. There we go. 1670, thank you.
16?
I'll comment briefly on the amendments. These amendments were brought to the Civil Service Commission at its meeting on February 1st, 2019. They were reviewed and approved, subject to some minor changes, which have been incorporated, and I'll note those. They were also distributed to all employees, all city employees, on January 28th of this year. We did receive feedback from some employees, and the feedback was also incorporated. So it was a very neat process. So with regards to section 1, the proposed change is primarily to delete the third column. This references annual accrual in hours of vacation leave. The purpose behind this is that, again, as the city has progressed toward implementing with all departments electronic timekeeping, it has become aware, now that things are not being done by hand, that some of the way things are happening in practice is not consistent with the code. For example, that third column is actually inaccurate. There was a rounding that occurred in the third column. 3.7 hours time based on a 26 pay period actually results in 96.2 hours, not 96.0. And that decimal point went out further as you went down the column. So instead of expanding the decimal points, the recommendation was to delete the third column, and then the Civil Service Commission recommended to clarify that that second column is representative of a 26 pay period per year. So that addresses the annual accrual. This will not change the amount of leave that employees have been or will continue to accrue. It is merely a cleanup in the code. The second section, again, one of the recommendations was to clarify that this is for sick leave benefits only. The 19.2.1 sections do relate to 19.2 sections relate to sick leave benefits, and so that was incorporated in there. This section was modified to, instead of attributing hours or referencing hours of sick leave per month, to actually reference it as it is accrued in the timekeeping, which is 3.7 hours per pay period. So again, that was not quite accurate with how in practice it had been accruing. And it also, again, because of that 3.7 hours, employees at the end of one full calendar year earn slightly more than what would have been the average of 8 hours per month. Let me see my notes here. It is in the memo, but they earn 8.016 hours on average per month. So again, that number was inaccurate as we expand the decimal points. So this was the reason for this change was to clarify that, and also to make sure that to clarify that sick leave can be used within that pay period. It accrues per pay period. It can be used within that pay period. You do not need to wait an entire month before you can use your sick leave. The third section, this was in reviewing this section, we realized that again, the language was inaccurate and appeared to restrict sick leave use. And so what was proposed by staff was to change it to more similarly have the language that is referenced for the accrual and availability of vacation leave, which was that an employee's accrual of the leave shall be counted upon their first hour and may be used as it is earned, subject to the other requirements of the section. And in the memo that was provided with the materials, you were given the section on vacation leave that this was mirrored after, as well as to indicate that, let's see here, no. Sorry, no, it just mirrors vacation leave exactly. So those were the three changes that were recommended. They're pretty minor, but again, to make sure that the language that we have in our code actually reflects what is occurring in practice, in accounting, and in HR.
Mrs. Murtha, the sick leave, that is a base. Everyone earns the exact same,
Correct.
regardless of time. So just designating 8 hours wasn't because everybody earns the same, wouldn't just designate 8 hours be appropriate?
The reason for that change is it actually, 8 hours, again, 3.7 hours per pay period averages out over 12 months to be slightly more than 8 hours. So we would have had to put 8.0.
But that's something as a city, we determine how many, right? It's not a state mandate we give.
Oh, it's not a state mandate at all, no.
Right. So, I mean, we could give 12 hours if we wanted.
You could,
Or
absolutely.
we could give 4.1 or whatever.
Yes. Yeah, so this, again, these two sections on sick leave did not change the actual amount of sick leave that employees have been or will continue to accrue unless the code is changed. It was more to make sure that the language was consistent with the accounting practices and how the sick leave was being accrued.
Any other questions for Mrs. Murtha? I take it that staff recommends.
Staff recommends approval, yes.
I'd look, if there are no questions or comments for Mrs. Murtha on the HR code amendment, I'd look for a motion.
Mr. President, I move to approve.
We have a motion to approve.
Second.
Second. Any further questions or comments for City Attorney Murtha on this amendment to our HR code? Do we have public hearing? Oh, we do have public hearing on here. I apologize, missed that. So I will open it up to the public. If there's anybody from the public has any concerns on our amendment to the HR code, please come forward, state your name and your concerns about the amendment to the HR code. Seeing no one from the public has any concerns with us amending the HR code, I'll close the public hearing. And again, we have a motion to approve by Ms. Walla with a second from Mrs. Trustum. Do you wish to continue with your motions? Okay. All right, any questions then or comments before we vote? Hearing none, we'll vote. Ms. Walla?
Aye.
Mrs. Trustum?
Aye.
Mr. Frederick?
Aye.
Chair votes aye. Motion carries on the HR code amendment. We will now move into our interviews. Mr. Gah, we have a planning and zoning board interviews, and we have some applicants in the crowd that are present. And if I'm correct, there is one applicant that was not able to make it this evening, so you attached a letter from him.
That is correct, President Decker, members of the commission. At the last meeting, we brought two items to you related to planning and zoning. One is to affirm the appointment made by the county commission for a resident who resides in the ETZ. So again, that's included in your packet. Also, the second action is there is a vacancy for a city resident. We provided you several applications, and you requested the opportunity to allow them to address the commission about why they're interested. So again, some of them are here, and there is one letter in your packet as well.
Okay, well, I'm just going to go off of as they're loaded into our packet here. Right, Mr. Bush and Mr. Kransdorf, is that?
Kuntz, I believe a letter in here as well.
Mr.
See,
Kuntz is here.
oh,
So I'm just going to go off the order that we're loaded into our packet and invite up the applicants, and the first one up is Mr. Jost.
Good evening, Commission. My name is Kyle Jost. Are we doing an interview, or what are we doing?
Well, I'll defer to our commissioners that wanted to, if you want to ask some questions of them.
my request for having people either submit a letter or be here in purposes was just to kind of give us some background and why you're interested in being on the board. I don't think we need an interview process, but instead of just throwing a random name out,
Sure.
I think it's better to hear kind of what people have to say and why they're interested in this position, to give some transparency and also allow the community to hear why you're looking to be on this board.
Sure. So my name is Kyle Jost. I'm a Dickinson native, born and raised. Last year I ran for the city commission and I was unsuccessful. But the same reasons apply to why I was interested in the planning and zoning as were my interests for the commission. And that is just that I have a genuine concern, or I really appreciate our community, and I really want to see that we continue to be progressive and that the decisions that we make, we do so with pragmatic and, or that we are pragmatic, and that we kind of problem solve using critical thinking and so forth. And this community means a lot to me. I'm born and raised, as I've already said. My wife is also a Dickinson native. We have roots that go very deep here. And so I just really want to be involved. I mean, the ultimate reason is that I want to be involved. I know that with this type of a committee, there is a lot of commitment, and I'm willing to put forth the work and the homework that it takes so that I can do the best job that I can. I want to ask challenging questions and ultimately just be involved. That's really important to me.
Any other questions for Mr. Jost? Well, the only thing I guess I don't have a question for you. I'll just say, don't be discouraged. You ran. You didn't win the first time. I didn't win the first time I ran.
Either did I.
Mr. Frederick didn't win the first time he ran. So we're sitting here. So
it was definitely a learning experience.
It was
for sure.
It was for myself. I'm sure it was for Mr. Frederick, and it was for you. So I appreciate that you're coming forward and you want to be involved, and thank you for showing up tonight.
Yeah, thank you.
Thanks.
Next citizen interest form that we have loaded into our packets is Mr. Kuntz. While Mr. Kuntz comes up here, I'll just let everybody know he's also said that he is interested in not only planning and zoning, but other boards that are available. Am I correct?
Yes, Mr. President.
And you do have them, you'd have them numbered.
Yep, of course, follow the directions. Mr. President, members of the commission, my name is Riley Kuntz. I did send in some general background information, so that should help. Additionally, I'd like to just be involved. That's a pretty common theme, but I think there's always room for improvement. For instance, recently in Watford City, there was an explosion at a saltwater disposal facility that sent a 400-barrel upright like 300 feet into the air. So I don't want that in my backyard, and I'm sure not too many other people in Dickinson do either. So that's just one instance where I think we could be proactive, and hopefully I can make some positive influence on the commission if I am appointed. Is there any questions?
Any questions for Mr. Kuntz?
No.
Well, thank you very much for your interest.
Thanks.
Thank you. As the packet was loaded, Mr. Bush was next, and he has submitted a letter. He was not able to make it this evening. So our next applicant that I see in the crowd is Mr. Nodlin.
George Nodlin. I think I know most of you. Been a member of this community for quite a while. I grew up in Dunn County. My wife is a retired professor from DSU. She's here with me tonight. Was married, just married 50 years last year, and we were members of this community for 50 years. I think you read my resume. I've been very involved in civic affairs in everything from school board to Chamber of Commerce to Veterans Affairs to every conceivable thing there has been. And somebody asked, why are you still interested after you've been a county commissioner, 20 years on the county zoning board, 2 years on this zoning board? I guess the reason I am interested, we moved back into Dickinson. We sold our home in the country and built a home in Dickinson, and I have an interest in the city. And I know Mr. Zuroff has already heard from me with road issues, and I'm always that opinionated, but basically, I think I can contribute because of my experience. The 20 years on the county zoning board, we went through the boom and bust of the 80s, and it wasn't fun. And I don't want to see that happen again. I think we're in a whole different situation today. Being a state senator, I worked on some issues with zoning, and they introduced a bill or two, I think, with zoning, and I was on this board just before your boom started again here in Dickinson's, the growth period, and we reworked some things when I was on this board, and we reworked our regulations at the county level 2 or 3 times and updated them. I think I have the experience for that, and that's what I'm here to offer, and I appreciate the opportunity to talk to you and explain to you that don't know me who I am and what I do and why I'm interested. So I thank you for allowing me to be here.
Thank you, Mr. Noddle. Any questions for Mr. Noddle? All right, well, thank you very much for coming in this evening.
Thank you.
And then our 5th applicant is not here, but he did submit a letter for us, and that is Mr. Kransdorf. He had a conflict with work, and so he is the 5th applicant. And now that we have heard from all of them, my suggestion is we take our time and come forward with our recommendations to Mr. Gov, who can forward them to us then. If you
The next meeting?
next meeting. That'll be in time for planning and zoning, because we do not have planning and zoning this month.
Correct.
So we'll make a decision on the first meeting in March for everyone. Okay, so
Sounds
that-
good to me.
Sound
Yeah.
good?
Yeah.
All right. Again, thank you all for coming. And that is it for timetable agenda. If there are any public issues of city concern that are not on our agenda, and you're a citizen with that concern, please come forward, state your concern to the commission. Oh, yes, we do have to approve the ETZ planning. Thank you, Rita. Mr. Goff.
Again, as I mentioned before, the commission has, the county commission has appointed a ETZ representative, and our code doesn't necessarily say that the city commission has to affirm it, but I think it would be customary to do so.
And that is Mr. Cordnoy, if I'm correct, right?
Correct.
And Mr. Cordnoy was one of the original, he did apply for our planning and zoning, I think, and then we forwarded the name over to Stark County.
Correct.
So, any questions for Mr. Gah and Mr. Cordnoy? I would look for a motion to appoint or affirm the appointment of Brad Cordnoy to the City Planning and Zoning as an ETZ representative.
Move to approve, Mr. President.
We have a motion to approve
Second.
with a second. Any further discussion on this appointment? Hearing none, we'll vote. Mrs. Truscom?
Aye.
Ms. Walla?
Aye.
Mr. Frederick?
Aye.
Chair votes aye. Motion carries on the board appointment. Now we'll move on to public issues of city concern not on the agenda. If you are a citizen with any concerns that are not on our agenda this evening, please come forward, state your name, and let us know your concern. Anyone from the public? Seeing no one from the public has any concerns that are not on our agenda, we will move in. Commissioners, do you have any items you wish to discuss or bring forward for the public to be aware of? If not, we do have one other item, and City Attorney Murtha, the recommendation is us to move into executive session.
It is, Mr. President.
And this is due to the previous claim. It's listed on your agenda as the bite claim. So we'll move into executive session for attorney consultation under North Dakota Century Code 44-04-19.1 and 44-04-19.2. I'd look for a motion to move into executive session.
So move.
Second.
We have a motion to move and a second to move into executive session. All in favor, state aye.
Aye.
Aye. All opposed, same sign. We'll be moving into executive.
I'll start over. Sorry about that. So we're back in open session after having an executive session for attorney consultation. Staff has made a recommendation to retain the Kenrick Group for assistance in the Vite claim, and we're seeking that approval from the commission this evening.
Upon legal counsel's advice, I would look for a motion for us to retain the Kendrick Group for assistance in the bite claim.
So move.
Second.
We have a motion with a second to retain Kendrick Group for assistance in the bite claim. Is there any further discussion, comments? I will go ahead and vote. Mr. Frederick?
Aye.
Mrs. Trustum?
Aye.
Ms. Walla?
Aye.
Chair votes aye. Motion carries. There's no further business. I'd look for the motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
We adjourn.